I'm speaking now. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you very much. All right, Emily, you're up next.
Check 1, 2, check 1, 2.
Excellent, thank you. Nicole, I'm not sure, but if you would, that would be great. If you want to participate in the meeting, we'll test you now.
1, 2, 3.
Thank you, Nicole. Steve, how about you, sir?
How does everybody in this group know how to
Before
talk
we start,
please?
the last time
We're
we
hopeful.
did this, there's quite a delay.
Christy, you're up next. If you want to participate, we'll test you now.
You guys come in
I'm just
first.
listening. I don't have much to say. I just wanted to listen.
So if you can kind
Okay,
of
that sounds
maybe
fine.
pause
Thank
a
you
little-
very much.
little bit to see if anybody,
Yeah, that's the
We have William. William, if you want to participate in the meeting, we'll test your microphone now. William, we're not hearing you right now. So we can hear you just a little bit, but you have a lot of reverb on your end. Our end is functional now, so I think that's on your end. Let's give it one more try, William, if you don't mind.
Can you hear me?
That's a little bit better. That's a little bit better. That's a little bit better, William. If we can't make it work and you want to participate in the meeting under the public section, under the visitors section, maybe we'll use the chat box, which is in the upper right-hand corner. It looks like a dialogue box, like on a Charlie Brown cartoon. There, somebody chimed in there. He's just going to listen. Okay, perfect. Thanks, William. I appreciate that very much. And then we have somebody from the Free Press. I don't know if you're participating or just listening in from the Free Press. Maybe you want to chat box us. Philip, usually you're just listening in. I don't know if you have any public commentary under the visitors section. If you want to chat box me and let me know. Otherwise, we'll test your microphone if you want to participate. Checking the chat box.
Just listening.
All right, thanks, Philip. All right, William, no worries about the technical difficulties. I've had my own tonight, so it's all just fine. All right, I think, Mr. Mayor, although I'm late, I believe that is everyone.
Yep.
So I think we are good to go whenever you are ready to go.
All right. Since, before we start, since we already did, Todd just did a roll call, everybody was present either virtually or in person, so we can bypass that. But first thing we'll do is call the meeting to order. It is 7:08 p.m. on Monday, June 22nd, 2020. This is the regular city council meeting for the city of St. Peter. This meeting is conducted in person and virtually, and we are located, the ones that are in person are at the senior center at the community center. So, they say we'll call the meeting to order. First thing on that we have, would all please join in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next we have the agenda. Everyone should have a copy of the agenda. Are there any changes on the agenda? If not, is there a motion to approve?
Ed will make a motion to approve.
Emily will second.
Ed 1, Emily 2. All in favor of the agenda as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Agenda is approved. Next, we have the minutes from our June 8th, 2020 meeting. Those minutes appear on pages 6 through 8. Are there any changes or corrections to those minutes? If not, is there a motion to approve?
Carrie Johnson, so moves.
Noel will second.
Carrie 1, Shannon 2. All in favor of the minutes as written, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Those minutes are approved. First up tonight, we have public hearings. The first one is for registered land survey number 76 for the bidders, I believe. And Russ, if you want to take over for the public hearing, we will open the public hearing. We'll go through a couple of rules first, but we will open the public hearing at 7:12 p.m. on Monday, June 22nd, 2020. And Todd, you want to go over some of the procedures, please?
Mayor, remember the rules for public hearings are generally that persons from the public can provide testimony to the city council. They're limited to 5 minutes based on the call of the mayor. Generally, the council will not respond to input or questions that are put forth at that time, and those questions may or may not be answered at that time, but are likely to occur during the discussion portion. Sometimes the discussion portion doesn't happen until a later meeting, but with both the hearings tonight, Mr. Mayor, the discussion is part of and proposed action is part of the regular agenda.
Okay, with that, Russ?
Mayor Zeman, members of the city council, Craig and Julie Bitter have petitioned for acceptance of registered land survey number 76. The property in question is, the mailing address is 925 West Austin Drive. We're at the very end of the Austin Drive cul-de-sac. Craig and Julie desired to build a garage addition to their single-family home, which currently has an attached garage. The construction could not be accommodated in a manner that would provide the required 7-foot setback in the R2 zoning district. It wouldn't qualify for a variance given that the property already accommodates a reasonable use, which is a single-family home and a garage. So to remedy the matter, the bidders approached Public Works Director Moulton and inquired as to the possibility or likelihood of being able to acquire a portion of McGill Park where they would then surrender a like-sized portion of their property. So basically an acre for acre swap of land. Public Works Director Moulton approached the Park and Rec Advisory Board and they had consented to the property swap as proposed by the bidders. The bidders have paid all of the cost of the survey. They've paid the cost of the petition to hear it. I also understand they've reimbursed the city for some legal expenses. The land swap is really shown most clearly, I believe, on page 42 of the agenda packet. And on that drawing, I've added and outlined the parcel that the bidders would be receiving from the city in red, and then I outlined the property that the city would receive from the bidders in green. The Planning Commission considered the matter at their last regular meeting, and they have recommended that you approve the proposed lot split and accept registered land survey 76. It should be noted that one of the questions of the Planning Commission is there precedence? And absolutely. You'll notice in the resolution, the bidder's property right now is described as an alternative registered land split, which I understand occurred with the previous owners when they attempted to make improvements that required acquisition of part of the city property in McGill Park. So as I understand the matter, and it's been explained to me, is that this property has already been subject to a similar land split. If you accept the RLS, the two properties then would be identified as Tract A, Registered Land Survey 76, and Tract B, Registered Land Survey 76. Mr. Mayor, that would conclude my report.
All right. I'm not sure. We've got a few listeners or people tuned in. Is there anyone from the applicants, the bidders, or their representatives here that would like to speak? Does not look like it. Is there anyone in the public that would like to speak on this matter? Does not appear so. We will therefore close this public hearing at 7:17 p.m. on Monday, June 22nd, 2020. Next up, we have another public hearing. This is for a waiver of subdivision administration of a lot split request. And we will open this public hearing at 7:19 p.m. on Monday, June 22nd, 2020. And Russ, if you want to take that one away, please.
Certainly, Mr. Mayor. Kurt and Lori Zins have acquired the property located at 507 West Elm Street The legal description of that property is lots 2 and 3 of lot 166 of the amended plat. I should note, as with the bidders, that notice of this hearing, as well as the bidders, has been mailed to every property owner within 350 feet. It has been published in the St. Peter Herald, and it has been posted at City Hall as required by statute. So I should have mentioned that in the first hearing. The Zins acquired this property, which had currently housed a single-family home that was substantially substandard, deteriorated, and unsightly. It certainly detracted from the neighborhood. So the Zins have acquired the property. They've already cost for the demolition and proper disposal of the remnants of that single-family home. And as the property exists as now, as I said, it's lot 2 and 3 of lot 166. There was a single-family home that was built, and it straddled the lot lines of the two lots, which isn't typically uncommon of that era. And in a plat of that age, we do not have our standard 6-foot easement on each side of the property line for utilities. So the properties were less than the 55 feet wide as they fronted Elm Street, which is not within your code, they were about 52.5. Your code requires 55. The property would be classified then as a legal, non-conforming lot. Your ordinance then says that lots of record would be developable. So even as they would exist as lot 2 and 3, 52.5 feet wide, they would be developable under the terms of your ordinance. The Zins then have submitted administrative lot split number, administrative lot split of the property, and they would like to reorientate the lot line that splits the two property from its now, which is a northerly southerly bearing, to an easterly westerly bearing. If you accept the lot split, both lots would meet the minimum of the 55-foot requirement. And it would meet the requirement of code as to access, which the code requires that, and I hope I get the right lighting here, except as otherwise provided in this chapter, or the zoning ordinance rather, no lot shall contain any structure unless such lot abuts for a minimum of 20 feet on at least one public street, or unless it has an unobstructed and recorded access easement of at least 20 feet upon a public street. So both lots would abut the northerly southerly alley within the block, which is a recorded 20-foot easement. So it would meet the requirements of code. If and when the lots are developed, all of the construction will meet the requirements as to setbacks, all of the requirements as to lot coverage, and all of the requirements as to lot height. The Planning Commission has also considered this matter at their last meeting, and while noting it is a somewhat unconventional split of the lots, they have recommended your approval this evening. Mr. Mayor, that concludes my report.
Okay. Is there anyone from the applicant request here to speak to the council or their representative? Seeing no one, is there anyone else in the public that would like to comment on this public hearing? Looks like we have no one, so we will close this public hearing at 7:21 on Monday, June 22nd, 2020. Next, we will move into visitors. Is there anyone in the audience here or on virtually that would like to speak to the council on any agenda item? Seeing no one, is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to the council on any matter whatsoever? Seeing no one, we will move to the consent agenda. The consent agenda begins in detail on page 10 and concludes with the resolution on pages 34 and 35 and includes the following budgeted purchases in excess of $10,000 to AID Electric for the installation of electric vehicles charging station for $31,825. The following license applications: to a tree worker license, to tool time handyman from June 23rd, 2020 to April 30th, 2021. There are 2 license requests from the St. Peter Baseball Association, a temporary 3-2 on sale beer and a temporary soft drink license. Those dates are June 23rd, 2020 through September 20th, 2020. Following individual appointments for one part-time or 2 part-time, 1 full-time position to Tara Schultz, Lindsay Hansen, and Kevin Hartman. The first 2 are for communication technicians, and the last one is for part-time bus driver. We have a following list of appointed election judges. There are 33 names, and once again, we thank all of them for their service. Plus the regular schedule of disbursements for June 4th, 2020 through June 17th, 2020. Are there any questions or comments on the consent agenda? Brad?
I have a question whether Todd or Russ, just a question on page 31, there's a disbursement to Southwest Minnesota Housing Partnership for $1,000 for, looks like, planning development services. What's that? Just curious what that's about.
Yeah, I can answer that, Mr.
Go ahead, Russ.
Yep, trying to get my camera on here, sorry.
No.
That was for the development fee for their management of the construction of the basements. As you'll recall, we had 90% payment, we were waiting for final payment request from the contractor, and then as soon as we got that, then we were due to pay Southwest for the management.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Questions, comments, consent agenda? If not, is there a motion to approve?
Ed will make a motion to approve.
All right, we got Shannon 1 and Ed 2. Now, any more questions? Call the roll, please, Barb.
Councilmember Grams,
Aye.
Councilmember Brufat,
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos,
Aye.
Mayor Zeman,
Aye.
Councilmember Ed Johnson,
Aye.
Councilmember Noel,
Aye.
Councilmember Carrie Johnson.
Aye.
Consent agenda is approved. Next up, we have unfinished business, and the only item we have is a dog park name, and Mr. Moulton.
Mayor Zeman and City Council, as you're aware, we have completed the construction at 1125 North Swift Street, and we are in the process of selecting a name for the dog park. A few months ago, the City Council requested that we develop a policy and procedures for naming city recreational facilities, and we did so. We brought that back to you guys, and it was approved. And we took that policy back to the Parks Board and asked them to consider about 7 names for the dog park. We had several from the public that came in. I threw a couple names in there as well that were quickly rejected. And then we went with, narrowed it down to 3 names. The 3 names that we considered were Thompson Dog Park, Thompson Kind Dog Park, and Swift Street Dog Park. All which were very fine names. The Parks Board discussed that for about 10 minutes and came back with Thompson Dog Park. And that would be the name that I'm recommending to you guys, along with the other 2 that were seriously considered. I'm available for questions.
All right, questions for Mr. Moulton? I don't see the screen. Anyone? Question? Now I see it. Pete, they didn't go for Moulton Dog Park when you, no?
Tails a wagging, they threw that out.
That's what was wagging?
So the main reason, Pete, that they wanted to go with this name is she was instrumental in doing a lot of fundraising for this.
Yeah, Betty did a very nice job of keeping everybody on task and raising funds and looking for different sources and getting the right people in line to ask for different funds. And really it was to attribute to her very complimentary, so.
When I asked that this would be tabled a couple of months ago, all I really wanted to achieve was that we have a policy.
Correct.
Because we have basically a policy for streets, but we never, and we go through this every time. And maybe there won't be that many in the future, who knows, but it seems like we've had a few of them lately. So anyway, I'm glad that all happened. Any other questions or comments? If not, the resolution naming dog park at 1125 North Swift Street as Thompson Dog Park appears on page 37. Is there a motion for approval?
Emily moves to approve.
Carrie Johnson will second.
Emily 1, Carrie 2. Any other questions or comments? Call the roll, please, Barb.
Councilmember Bluefett,
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos,
Aye.
Mayor Zeman,
Aye.
Councilmember Ed Johnson,
Aye.
Councilmember Noel,
Aye.
Councilmember Carrie Johnson,
Aye.
Councilmember Grams.
Aye.
Resolution is approved. Next, we have new business, and the first one has to do with the public hearing that we just had for the registered land survey. And Russ again.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I wouldn't suggest it's necessary to go through my report again. There were no members of the public that attended the hearing. I believe it's non-controversial. And to that end, there is a resolution that's been prepared that begins on page 43 of your packet that would provide for your approval of the RLS number 76.
All right.
Proposed by the bidders and recommended by the planning commission.
Okay, anybody have any questions for Russ? If not, is there on, let's see, the resolution approving the waiver of subdivision for registered land survey 54 as petitioned by Craig and Julie Bitter appears on pages 43 and 44. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Noel will second.
Okay, Steve 1, Shannon 2. Now any questions? Call the roll, please, Barb.
Councilmember DeVos,
Aye.
Mayor Zeman,
Aye.
Councilmember Ed Johnson,
Aye.
Councilmember Noel,
Aye.
Councilmember Carrie Johnson,
Aye.
Councilmember Grams,
Aye.
Councilmember Bluefett.
Aye.
Resolution is approved. Next, we have the waiver for the subdivision request for 507 West Elm. Pete, excuse me, I didn't even look at you. Russ? I know I'm going to pay for that again.
Pete, I think Public Works Director Moulton should be commended for working with the bidders to find a remedy for a solution for their quandary. It's always nice, and I know Pete feels the same when we can help someone out. But Mr. Mayor, regarding the 507 West Elm, the Zinn's administrative lot split application, again, I'd answer any questions the council or yourself may have, but there is a resolution that's been prepared beginning on page 50 that would provide your approval.
Okay, questions for Russ? Russ, I have one. Carrie, I'm sorry, did you have something?
Oh, why don't you go ahead first?
Okay. Every time, I guess, this back lot, what I'm calling the back lot, the most northerly lot, because of the 20-foot alley, that does qualify for a accessible, buildable lot. Do we have, I know there's houses that kind of look this way. Do you have any other examples in town where we have this situation?
None came to mind, but at the planning commission, Public Works Director Moulton suggested we have a few. I don't know if he can specifically give you locations or addresses. One that comes to mind is the Potts residence that has a driveway that would enter onto Gray Street, kind of by the high school area. And it's well tucked back in the woods, and then it has an access that must be a recorded shared access for a driveway with one of the neighbors there. But that's the only one I can become aware of. And perhaps, again, Public Works Director Moulton would be able to cite the specific. It does meet all the requirements of the code, so the planning commission has provided a recommendation. And again, they did note that it is unconventional split, and a couple mentioned that it wouldn't be desirable for their particular situation.
Okay.
But again, pending or being that it did meet the requirements of code, they did provide that approval. If you did indulge the Public Works Director, if maybe he could cite something.
Yeah, I think there's another one that I think about too. There's one, and maybe Pete will bring this up. There's one on Jefferson on the south side, where there's 1 or 2 properties back off that alley.
There's 2 off of Jefferson there, Mr. Mayor, and then there's a property on Park Row between 3rd and 4th Street on the south side. It is a white house that really goes into the alley near the Nicollet County Pioneer Bank as another property. And then the Dixon property that I think Russ was alluding to there up on Gray Street across from the high school where
Right.
there's a dedicated
Yeah.
easement.
My other question that I have, I'm sorry, Carrie, for,
fine.
the other question I have, this is a buildable lot, but they can still not build a garage on it, on this lot. Don't, you need to have,
They could have a garage. Theoretically, it would front the alley. I believe both lots are expected to have access off of that southern part of the north-south alley. It's actually been paved by an adjoining property owner who's kind of paved it as part of his parking lot.
right. But I thought you couldn't have then you can have a lot anywhere in town where you can just put a garage up?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. No, they cannot just build just a garage.
Right.
I thought you were saying that if they built a residence, they couldn't have a garage. I misunderstood you, Mayor. But no, you cannot establish a garage, a detached garage, which would be an accessory building, because there wouldn't be a principal use for which it to be accessory to. So
Right.
no, you could not do that in that instance.
And the Zinzes are aware of that, I guess, I hope?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. Carrie, you had a question?
I think most of my questions were answered, and I did call Russ earlier today. I was trying to wrap my head around what would motivate a property owner to split the parcels this way as opposed to the north-south way. I think I'm starting to understand it, but I did drive by, and the north alley is pretty narrow, and it's not paved, but the other alley is. So I think you answered my questions, Russ, but if you can speak to that at all for the other council members, I thought that your explanation was helpful.
Well, yeah, the north-south alley is a 20-foot alley, the easterly-westerly alley is a 16-foot alley, so that would not qualify as the 20-foot dedicated platted access. But that is a platted alley, and again, it has been paved by the adjoining property owner. The city didn't provide the paving. But both accesses, as I believe, would be developed off of the alley. And again, upon development, they will meet all of the development regulations as to setback and lot coverage and maximum height, because as a blank canvas, there's really no basis to give a variance. They can develop it appropriately for one of the principal permitted uses in the R2 district.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? If not, the resolution approving the waiver of subdivisions for lots 2 and 3, block 116, for realigning and locating the interior lot lines between the 2 parcels appears on pages 50 and 51. Is there a motion for approval?
Ed will make a motion to approve.
Carrie Johnson will second.
Add 1, carry 2. Any other questions now? Call the roll, please, Barb.
Mayor Zeman,
Aye.
Councilmember Ed Johnson,
Aye.
Councilmember Noel,
Aye.
Councilmember Carrie Johnson,
Aye.
Councilmember Grams,
Aye.
Councilmember Bruflat,
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos.
Aye.
Resolution is approved. Thank you, Russ. Next up, we have a seasonal lineman assistant job description, and Pete again.
Mayor Zeman, City Council, from time to time, we hire an intern, as we've called it in the past, or this year we're looking at what we call him as an assistant lineman, and really what it is, it's someone that is interested in the electric industry that comes in and helps us supplement our full-time staff. We have a lot of expertise within our staff right now. We're really just looking for a pair of boots on the grounds and an extra couple of hands. We've developed a job description so that we'd have the ability to evaluate applications is the biggest thing. When we hire, we can do points. Unfortunately, we've only had a couple of candidates to pick from in the previous few years that we've done this, but as we go through the process of continuing this, We anticipate 3 to 4. As the word spreads, there should be a handful that come before us. What I'm asking you to do is approve the job description that's on page 53, 54, and 55, and the resolution on page 56.
Questions? We talked about this a little bit last time, and pretty straightforward, I think. If no one has any questions at this time, the resolution establishing the seasonal lineman assistant position appears on page 56. Is there a motion for approval? I didn't hear anything there. Can you help do it again, please?
Noel will move. Emily will second.
Okay. Shannon 1, Emily 2. Now any questions? Call the roll, please, Barb.
Councilmember Ed Johnson,
Aye.
Councilmember Noel,
Aye.
Councilmember Carrie Johnson,
Aye.
Councilmember Grams, Councilmember Bruflat,
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos,
Aye.
Mayor Zeman.
Aye. Resolution is approved. Next up, we have we're going to be talking about the pool closure, and Joey and Nicole are here, and if you want to start us off, or Todd?
Joey can take it away.
All yours, Joey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. At last week's council workshop, you'll recall that you were presented with a plan on how we would reopen our pool to meet Minnesota State or Minnesota Department of Health guidelines. And the plan encompasses a variety of areas that require safety. And those areas are outlined in your packet on page 57. Tonight, I'm here to talk to you about the normal process for opening the pool and be a normal course of action through city business. Should you, though, tonight decide to close the pool, we would need formal action in order to do that. You would see that on page 59 with a resolution. If you choose, though, however, to open the pool, we would need no further action from you tonight. So I'm available for questions or comments, and so is Nicole, our pool manager.
Okay. Questions? Brad, go ahead.
Joe, I have questions. What are some additional expenses? I know Nicole indicated that perhaps a tent might be needed, or what further thoughts have been given to a first aid area as well as a break area for staff?
Right. So some of those additional expenses could include a temporary tent for a first aid area. We do have some other options to possibly set up a satellite area under the pavilion as well, right outside of the pool. Additional expenses also would include cleaning supplies, additional cleaning supplies that we normally have, PPEs for staff, which you would see. Otherwise, the majority of our expenses are normal pool season expenses.
Thank you. I know most people's minds are made up one way or on the other on this one. I'll just say for the month and a half, maybe 2 months of service, I think this is a huge investment for what's not going to give us a normal pool opening. We're talking about 1/3 capacity. Friends can't play with each other. No pool chairs to sit on. People can't socialize too close. So that's just my opinion. Is I think it would be best to just defer until next year. I am an optimist that next year it's going to be open. I just think for this year, what we're facing, it's not our best allocation of resources. But I do, Joey, I appreciate the time you've taken to actually lay it out. I think you have done a good job seeing what would comply. So I do appreciate the time you and Nicole have thought through this. So thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Emily?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Joey and Nicole, again, I echo Brad's thanks for a lot of time and attention that went into this. Just a few comments that I have. I've been collecting my thoughts on this today. I have heard from quite a few residents regarding the pool, and I'll say that it is pretty split as to whether or not they think it should be open this year or not. And also that most of the opposition was very well articulated and not based in, oh, we're just afraid, and it's not a fear-based, it was a very rational argument that I received from these people. I am personally not in favor of opening right now. I think it's prudent for us to wait. Our state of emergency, being up in the air throughout the country, and I kind of think we need a few weeks of data from other municipalities to see if opening is a good idea. Why should we be the guinea pig? I think we're kind of early into the summer right now, and maybe we could re-examine this in a few weeks once there's more data out there. If there is good data, maybe I would potentially be willing to vote in favor if the statistics back that up. I liked, Nicole, I really liked your idea that you laid out about potentially laying out ideas for pool usage restricted to lap swimming and swimming lessons, that kind of thing. If we do open eventually, I would be in favor of that route more than an open swim. And I have a lot of reasons for that. I went through and did a lot of research today, kind of around the country, where they've reopened, like, Arizona, Texas, South Carolina, just a number of states all over the country had an opening. They've reopened or they've relaxed restrictions, and now they're seeing a big resurgence in COVID cases. And I just think it's better for us to be safe than sorry in this case. It would reduce the number of people present if we just had the lap swim or the swimming lessons, that kind of thing. But again, the bottom line for me is I think we need to wait, because this is I think Brad put it last week, a want and not a need. And I think that we need to just be prudent and wait for better information. And if any of you are interested, I do have some references for the statistics that I brought up, but I didn't want to take all the time. But anyway, that is my piece, and thank you again, Joey and Nicole, for your work on this.
Great. Any other comments, questions? Steve?
Joey, if we approve its opening, what would you look at for a potential date of opening, Joey?
We would be roughly about 9 to 14 days out from opening. And what that would give us time to get staff through the necessary training to get open. In addition, get the pool heaters running and some of that equipment going. But in a perfect world, somewhere between about 9 and 14 days, which would bring us into early July.
Okay, thanks, Joe. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Any other questions or comments? Carrie?
Yeah, I just had a couple comments, and I mentioned this at the workshop last week that, I'm going to take off my mask just so you can all hear me, that I feel better about the pool opening after hearing Joey's presentation, and Nicole had a big part of that too. I know that after talking with both of them, they take this pandemic very seriously. They take the responsibility seriously. I think the things that will make the most impact in terms of mitigating risk will be the reservation system to control that capacity, the employee pod system. I've heard a lot from community members on this on both sides. I think overwhelmingly I've heard open it because, and it was very rationally thought out. It was prioritizing swimming lessons, and they brought up equity issues, and having a safe place for people to go that's accessible and at a low price point. I've also heard from people that really want to be safe and not open it, and pointed to some really good reasons for that. So I also respect that. But I do feel confident that this plan, while it doesn't completely eliminate risk, it mitigates the risk as much as possible. So I am in support of opening the pool. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor.
Ed?
I just want to say I've been reading through Joey's plan and Nicole's plan, and I think they have a pretty good plan. It's not a perfect world anymore, and there is going to be mistakes, but I definitely agree with opening it up.
Okay, anyone else? Emily?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to point out also, in some of my research, I was looking around for other guidelines from other municipalities and their pools, and Colorado had a policy that limits the pool capacity to 50% or 50 people, whichever is fewer, excluding the staff and the coaches. And I found that number to be a lot more reasonable than 125. And that was something that stood out to me. And then that policy from Colorado also encouraged the communities to limit pool activity to lap swim and maybe lessons. So again, not an open pool or an open swim situation.
Okay.
That was it.
Joey, did you have something?
Yeah, just to touch on that point a little bit, and you know, we thought hard about that capacity to start out with, and that would be something that we would definitely monitor from the first day we would open. And if that points to you know, maybe it's too many, we would quickly reduce that. But as anything with that plan, we would take time to evaluate, and you know, we know there probably has to be some changes, you know, once we see the plan in action. You know, usually a plan isn't perfect until you see it in use, and then that was something Nicole and I would work really hard on to make sure we're constantly evaluating that plan and make sure it's working.
Anyone else?
Could I just say something?
Yeah.
Matt Baroe here, just a local resident who likes.
Oh, I'm sorry,
to
Matt. I thought it was Brad. That you guys sound alike. Really, I'll allow it, but usually, you know, you should ask to speak when I asked at the beginning of the meeting, if you wanted to talk on any or speak on any agenda item, that is when you should have stated your name.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, but
That's
go
fine.
go ahead, Matt. Go ahead.
I was going to kind of co-sign what I've heard around. I think that it would be good to kind of take a look at the safety measures other towns have been doing, and you know, and try to open the pool with stuff like that. Like my two kids would be spending a lot of time probably at Hallett's Pond, and I know a lot of people in the community are going to be doing that instead. And I think that this is probably going to be safer just because of the obvious reasons, plus it's chlorinated. So at least we kind of have a little bit of control over maybe a little bit more safer behavior. So that would kind of just be my 2 cents.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else?
Thank you.
This is Shannon, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, go ahead, Shannon.
I just wanted I won't repeat anything that other people have said. Sort of the way I'm feeling about it right now, I echo Carrie's sentiments a lot. I think a lot of planning has gone into this, and I had some back and forth with Joey last week, and feel quite persuaded that the staff is, my biggest concern was lack of compliance from guests at the pool, and I was concerned about that, and I've been reassured that the pool staff are very accustomed to dealing with and having to sort of discipline, for lack of a better word, people who are not being compliant. And so I feel very comfortable with the roadmap that MDH has given us, and that we will be able to accomplish and operate safely. So I'm in favor of opening the pool.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? The resolution authorizing closure of the city's outdoor municipal pool for the 2020 season appears on page 59. Is there a motion for approval?
It's probably a losing motion, but I so move.
I will second. Emily seconds.
Okay, Brad, 1, Emily, 2. Now, just to let the council know, if you are voting aye in this situation, this is kind of reverse what we usually do, but if you are voting aye in this situation, you are voting to close the pool. So a nay vote would be to open the pool, and the reason that is because under normal business, we would be opening the pool. And this is not normal business, so therefore it's the reverse. So an aye vote is for closing the pool, and a nay vote is for opening the pool. Any more clarification needed of that, or any more questions or comments?
Thank you for that.
All right. If not, call the roll, please, Barb.
Councilmember Noel.
Nay.
Councilmember Carrie Johnson.
Nay.
Councilmember Grahams.
Nay.
Councilmember Bruflat.
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos.
Aye.
Mayor Zeman.
Nay.
Councilmember Ed Johnson.
Nay.
Resolution fails by a vote of 2 ayes and 5 nays. Next up, we have a hazardous building removal repair order. Todd and Pete?
Mayor and members, this is Russ working
Oh,
on this one
sorry.
for us. So Russ has this one.
Thank you, Todd. Mayor, members of the City Council, the Kingpin's Bowling Alley at 1671 South 3rd Street was subject to a fire on February 16th of this year. Subsequent to the fire, the remnants of the building and the fire debris have been enclosed by a snow fence, which has been up and down and partial and up and down and partial. The property is owned by iBowl LLC, and the manager of iBowl LLC is Dwight Selders. On the 9th of April, your building official, Dean Bussey, undertook an inspection of the property. And a result of that inspection was Mr. Bussey has indicated that the most appropriate course of action would be to complete the demolition and then to clear the site of the fire debris. I have had the opportunity to talk to the first mortgage holder, and the lender has indicated they would not intend to take possession of the property. I have talked to an agent/adjuster at the insurance company, and while he laughed and said it is not his decision, he explained he would not expect, nor would they typically take possession or ownership of the property. So it will fall on iBowl LLC to provide for the completion of the demolition and the clearing. To begin the process, building official Bussey and myself recommend that you declare the property to be a hazardous building. And the definition and statute of a hazardous building, and again, I gotta find the right light, is any building or property which because of inadequate maintenance, dilapidation, physical damage, unsanitary condition, or abandonment constitute a fire hazard or a hazard to the public safety or health. The first step would be for you to pass the resolution in the packet declaring the property to be hazardous. The second would be then to have those orders served upon the property owner and any lien holders of record. And subsequent to that, or coterminous to that, you would file a copy of that order with the court administrator at the Nicollet County Courthouse. The property owner and the lien holders would have a 20-day period to contest the declaration and essentially say, no, that obviously it's not a hazardous building. After a 90-day period, if they have taken no action to clean up, then we can seek a judgment from the district court, and the city then could undertake the cleanup and provide an assessment then against the property owner. One of the issues is part of the demolition debris could go to a demo landfill. Anything that is fire burned, charred, or ash would have to go to a hazardous waste demolition landfill, given that it hasn't been tested for asbestos or lead paint. So it is assumed that those two elements are present, and it needs to be disposed of as a hazardous waste. The cleanup would also require the removal of the asphalt parking lot with proper disposal of the debris, the disconnection of the water and sewer line in the 3rd Street main, and then the establishment of the appropriate grade and ground cover. As I said, the city would in this case, we'd probably be required to bid it, given the anticipated cost. So we'd go to a sealed bids, and the city would pay for it, and then have that as an assessment, and the assessment would need to be paid until the property could be changed hands for redevelopment, or until such time as the city negotiates the assessment as part of the development agreement with the pending development. At this point, building official Bussey and I, given that a copy of his inspection report needs to accompany the order, we're suggesting that the 4 causes that are contained in the resolution on page 62 be amended. And I will read them as Mr. Bussey and I would suggest the amendment. The number 1 is essentially the same. The building has been predominantly destroyed by fire, and the portions of the building partially intact are subject to further collapse. Number 2 then would be, there are no portions of the remaining structure which could be occupied given the threat of spontaneous collapse. Number 3, the fire debris has not been tested for hazardous materials such as asbestos or lead paint, which if present would be exposed to the elements. And then we suggest adding a number 4, which would be nearby property owners report that during periods of heavy winds, they've experienced times when ash and dust from the debris becomes airborne and enters their property. And again, given that it hasn't been tested for hazardous materials, it's probably not a good thing to be flying around the neighborhood. So, Mr. Mayor, upon acceptance of the resolution, it'll begin a timeline, and hopefully then we can begin a process of cleaning it up. And I do truthfully believe it will end up being the city's responsibility given the circumstances, but we can get that process underway. I'd answer any questions that you or members of the city council might have.
Okay, questions for us?
Mr. Mayor, this is Shannon.
Go ahead.
I'm wondering if any steps in this sequence can happen concurrently. In particular, could the bids be happening before some of the other steps? I'm thinking of expediency for the poor neighbors of this property who are experiencing, things blowing into their yards and things like that.
Yeah, the statute would, Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead,
The
Russ.
statute would allow a shorter timeline, but at the request of the county attorney, we're providing a 90-day period. Given the recent course of events from last week, it may be necessary perhaps for someone else to go in and seek some evidence. So, County Attorney Xander Fisher has asked that we have at least a 90-day period for her and others in the legal field to conclude their work.
If I can, let me jump in if I may. The real question, I think, if I can paraphrase Shannon, was that can we solicit bids within this 90-day period? Certainly we couldn't act and have the property raised or cleaned before that time, but can we do some things concurrently, Russ?
Yeah, I would believe we can go out for bids, and obviously if we go out for bids and the owner ends up cleaning it up, yeah, I believe we can expedite the process marginally, perhaps.
If there's any opportunity to expedite it, I think that the neighbors would certainly be grateful for that, so thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Ed?
Shannon took care of my questions.
All right. Anyone else have any other questions for Russ or Todd or anyone? Not, the resolution ordering repair or removal of hazardous conditions located at 1671 South 3rd Street, St. Peter, appears on pages 62 and 63. Is there a motion for approval?
Noel will move.
Ed will
Lorraine will
second.
second.
All right, I've got Shannon 1, Ed 2. Any other questions at this time?
Mr. Mayor, this is Steve Graham.
Yep, go ahead, Steve.
Harold, Todd, have you received any complaints or concerns from any citizens in that particular area, you or Pete Moulton, relative to that issue?
I won't speak to Pete, but I've had 2 contacts to my office from neighbors within that area that have wondered about the timeline.
Okay. I've gotten emails on it, not from neighbors, just from citizens that familiar with it, that what the heck's going on.
And I've had several.
And Ed has too, he's telling me. Any other?
So are they?
Oh, go ahead, Steve,
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I think, Mr. Mayor, I think, are people questioning the process of what's happening or complaining?
They are questioning, why is it taking so long? Those are the questions
That's all I
I'm
need
getting.
to know.
Yeah.
All right. I'm sorry to interrupt, Mr. Mayor.
No, I interrupted you, I'm sorry. Any other questions? Call the roll, please, Barb.
Councilmember Carrie Johnson,
Aye.
Councilmember Grams,
Aye.
Councilmember Bruflat,
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos,
Aye.
Mayor Zeman.
Aye.
Councilmember Ed Johnson,
Aye.
Councilmember Noel.
Aye.
Resolution is approved. Next up, we have a COVID-19 preparedness plan. Todd?
Mr. Mayor and members, there's information included in your packet starting on page 64. As you may recall, a week or 2 ago, I think it was June 5th, the governor asked that local units of government provide for a preparedness plan, similar in nature to what we've seen businesses who wish to open under the current state of emergency. And so what you see in your packet from page 65 through the end of page 70 and 71 include a plan. There may be further requirements for the future, but I believe this plan meets the minimum needs that are necessary. Certainly, Mayor and members, we have lots of things that are going on related to COVID, but the intent here is to be able to provide some basic information for customers and basic information for staff as we look towards helping to ensure additional safety as a part of COVID. The resolution on page 73 provides for your approval of this plan. It would be my intent that if there is new guidance to come forward, that would mean likely a modification, that we would bring that forward to you and continue the pace that's appropriate. But at this time, you're required to have one by the 29th, and this is your last regular meeting before that stage. So it's my hope that you would approve the plan that's before you.
Okay. Questions? Comments? Carrie?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention the aspects of the plan in terms of sick leave, and it's right at the top of page 66. I think that this is a good policy because it's going to reinforce stay home if you're sick for those employees who are ill for whatever reason. I also think that to allow the employees their vacation balances to go into the negative is also a good way to reinforce. So if they do get sick and they have to be out for a while, they can still take a vacation at a later date. You mentioned, having some flexibility or changing this plan if there becomes a need. And I would just say, as I said last week, that if you were to hear employees feel more comfortable at work with, especially in office spaces that aren't outside, feel more comfortable having employees wear masks. Customers, the city's customers may also feel that way too, so just being open to that feedback. So those are just my comments. Otherwise, I think it's a great plan.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, I think we've done a good job. We had some customers in today wearing masks. I think we've done a good job with staff who want to wear masks. We've allowed that from the very beginning. And so I know that there has been concern in some circles about whether wearing a mask is a political statement or not. For us, it's really a level of comfort. If we have folks that feel comfortable doing it and it doesn't hinder their safety or their ability to perform their job, no problem. And so I think our culture is established well in that direction.
Okay. Go ahead.
And so when I think about wearing a mask, I'm more thinking about the people that are around me. But you have said last week that in the office spaces or the spaces that are, you're not outside, you're working indoors, there, you do have ability and capacity to be at least 6 feet apart for those workstations, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Brad?
Just have a quick question for Todd on implementation of this. And it goes actually to the citywide state of emergency. Now, would you need that necessarily in place to implement this procedure or keep it in place? Or I'm just thinking 3 months in, do you foresee any reason why you might need that in place going forward?
No, not for this. And frankly, as I articulated at your workshop, there's nothing in these pages from page 65 through 71 that's new. These are all things that we have in place. It's just making sure it's articulated in a way based on the direction from the state of Minnesota to have a preparedness plan in place. I don't know that this directly relates either to the emergency, well, it certainly relates to the emergency that the state has in place because that's the basis for the requirement. As far as the city declared emergency, this hasn't been a requirement, but it seems like a prudent practice. And so I would not see any significant change in these policies through the end of this year.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Questions, comments?
Let me explain, if I may, Mr. Mayor, the end of the year comment. The end of the year comment really relates to the federal requirements that are in place relative to the CARES Act and the impact that federal requirements have had on sick leave, either the 2-week or the modification to FMLA. And so that's why I mentioned the end of the year. Those are in place through the end of the year.
Okay. Steve, did you have something?
No, I do not, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, I saw your light on, okay. The resolution approving the City of St. Peter COVID-19 Preparedness Plan appears on page 73. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Carrie Johnson will second.
Steve, 1, Carrie, 2. Any other questions or comments at this time? Call the roll, please. Barb?
Councilmember Grahams,
Aye.
Councilmember Bruflat,
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos,
Aye.
Mayor Zeman.
Aye.
Councilmember Ed Johnson,
Aye.
Councilmember Noel,
Aye.
Councilmember Carrie Johnson.
Aye.
Resolution is approved. Next, we have a School District 508 Memorandum of Understanding. Todd?
Mayor, members, this has been an agreement that you've had in place with the school district since about 2004. It started, frankly, as a part of a state budget deficit at that time, and it was really an exchange of money for services from community education with your recreation department. And so this has been in place since that time, and we exchange services, and the school district provides some resources. If you'd like me to go into a long history of that, I'm happy to do that, but suffice it to say, we do rely on these revenues to provide for some of the programming that's required as a part of community ed that we are able to perform and probably falls more appropriately into your basket of activities with the recreation department. It's important to note that not all cities and school districts treat community ed in the same way as St. Peter does. And so the rule, of course, is promulgated at the state of Minnesota, and there are lots of variations throughout the state, and this was a cost-efficient way to do this work. The Memorandum of Understanding starts on page 76 through 78, and the resolution providing for approval of it is on page 79. Should the council fail to approve this, we would stop some of the services that we are currently providing and have traditionally provided since 2004. And of course, the school district would not provide you those resources that go into your recreation fund.
Okay. Questions? Brad?
I just have a question. I see how much that the school district is contributing to these programs. But how much is it that these programs actually cost the city?
You know, our goal is to try and make that be a break even on any given year. But frankly, Brad, depending on the amount of participation, frankly, some years you make a buck, some years you lose a buck, but we really target it to be close to the dollars that are provided within this program. But again, it does vary a little bit based on the number of participants.
Okay, so it's not like a 50-50 split, we're actually trying to break even on it?
That's exactly correct, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Questions, comments?
Mr. Mayor, this is Steve Grahams. I'm just curious, if Pete is still around, Todd, but from Pete's perspective, do you feel that the school district just gives what they are absolutely required to, or are they willing to give a little bit more? I'm just curious how that relationship has played out this past year.
I think one of the things you're seeing, Steve, is the relationships evolving into something that's really beneficial to the community. When we first started a lot of our different processes and relationships here, it was kind of a figure out what everybody's doing, and I see a lot of good conversation, a lot of growth on both sides, and I think it's working well.
Okay, thank you, Pete.
Anyone else?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Anyone else? Questions, comments? The resolution authorizing execution of Youth Development Memorandum of Understanding appears on page 79. Is there a motion for approval?
Ed will make a motion to approve.
Carrie Johnson will second.
Ed 1, Carrie 2. Now any more questions, comments? Call the roll, please, Barb. Or Emily, did you have one? I'm sorry. Okay.
No, I didn't.
Sorry, I guess you were just getting ready for the vote. I'm sorry. Call the roll, please, Barb.
Councilmember Bergstadt,
Aye.
Councilmember Devos,
Aye.
Mayor Zeman.
Aye.
Councilmember Ed Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Noel.
Aye.
Councilmember Carrie Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Grahams.
Aye.
Resolution is approved. That concludes our new business. Next up, we have reports. Don't have anything to add, Todd, so I'll turn it over to you.
Mr. Mayor, as you know, since the emergency's been declared for COVID, every time we're together, I try and provide a short report. I have about 7 just quick items that I'd like to mention if I can. I won't go through the long list that I have previously, but these 7 items I believe are, first of all, I want to mention that the business meetings that we're having on Friday in partnership with the Chamber have stopped. And so they may restart if there are significant new items that come up related to the business community. But I think for the most part, that was very successful. We stopped at the end as we were kind of getting to the end here with no new information, and participation kind of trickled off. So we continue to follow MDH guidelines. I think that's important. You see that with the pool and other things. MDH is our Minnesota Department of Health is our go-to resource in a lot of areas. And so we continue to work and try and make sure that we're following those guidelines appropriately. That includes park restrooms and signage. Restrooms are open, and we do have signage on the restrooms about when they're cleaned, which is usually early in the morning, usually before 8 o'clock. Sometimes if we have a struggle in a certain place, it might change a little bit. And then also related to the community center. As you know, the community center is open with adjusted use and hours, but certainly right now we don't have any gymnasium utilization, nor the track. And we do have some tenants that are closed to the public, really just taking calls or potentially invitations to participate within their offices. We really don't have any other city operational challenges right now, and let me be more specific about that. As you may recall, the plan was that we would open to the public at our offices, whether it's Pete's office or the community center or at City Hall on the 15th. And according to the leadership team today, when we had department head meeting, we didn't experience any significant challenges related to that. Things seem to go pretty well. Signage is up and seems to be working. And the additional cleaning protocol, that's not only for staff, but that's for people that come to visit. So all the facilities are hit, at least in public areas, a couple times a day now. Push bars, door handles, those kind of things are hit a couple times a day. And so we feel good about that. We have not had any substantial supply chain issues. We do have a couple of electronic things like a computer here and there that's on back order, just isn't quite getting here from China, some things like that, but nothing that I would deem as significant. And We continue to do screening at work, as we talked about just briefly related to your preparedness plan. We've been doing that now for a couple of weeks, which includes a series of questions and a temperature check every day for employees as they start their workday. So those are the big ones that I wanted to mention, Mr. Mayor and members, and I'd certainly stand for questions if folks have questions about any of those topics or anything else related to COVID.
Okay, anyone have questions? Carrie?
I have a question, Mr. Mayor.
Carrie's, sorry, Steve, we got Carrie first, I'm sorry.
I'll be quick. You said that there's no gym utilization, however, the daycare tenants are able to use the gym?
That's correct. What I should have been more clear, gymnasium is not open to general public use or open gym. With the daycares that occupy the building, they can control, and certainly they regulate the number of kids that are there. It's on a very regimented schedule, and so they certainly are allowed to use that.
Thank you.
Steve?
I just have one to Todd. Todd, you know, when you opened your office, I think it was June 15th, how far did the line of people go back that wanted to complain to the city administrator about his services to our community?
I'm not sure that there was a line, but my door is one of the ones that was closed, and they had to knock to get in, so I'm not really sure about that. The reason that door is a knock is because within Barb's space, there's really not 6 feet available. And so that's, you gotta wait in the hallway until we invite you in, or we call you, or we talk to you in that manner. So I appreciate that, though.
All right, just wondering.
I'm not related to this, and I neglected to do this earlier, and Matt, I see you're still with us? No? I see his name, isn't it Christie?
Yeah, Christy.
But he's not there?
Oh, there you go.
Oh,
But if you want Matt, I can go get him.
No, that's okay, I'm sorry, Christie. I didn't see if his name was on it before or not. I neglected to ask for your home, or for his home address, or your home address when he spoke earlier, and that's all I needed for the record.
yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I can put it in the chat.
Okay,
That'd be just fine. Thank you very much, Christy.
thank you. All right.
Mr. Mayor, any other questions about COVID from council? I mean, that I can answer. I know there are lots of questions out there, but I can't answer all of them. All right, Mr. Mayor, then the last one that I have is city-county meeting discussion. So we had a city-county liaison meeting last week, and Councilmember Grams and Councilmember Carrie Johnson participate in that. So I yield the floor to them if they have anything that they'd like to report. And if they have nothing, then I'll hit just a couple of the issues that we talked about, just so you and the members and the community has a flavor for what some of the discussion points are.
Gary, do you have any comments?
Well, when we meet lately, I've been really interested just what they have to say from a Nicollet County public health perspective, and have complimented them on their information that they're putting out there on social media. That's been really helpful. I think, the theme of the last couple of meetings has been, the city is collecting data to, I guess, support to support funding for shared services, especially with library funding and senior activities. Anything you have to add, Stephen?
Well, I know that Todd is typically placed in the position of groveling on his knees, and in this particular meeting that I listened to, there was a slight request for the senior center funding, some additional funding from them. No, not additional, some. And it met with silence. So that typically is kind of their protocol when it comes to anything that involves any additional contribution as a partner with the activities St. Peter is doing. So that's disappointing. But Todd, as usual, does a great job. So thank you, Todd.
Mayor, members, just a couple of the other issues that are on there. Certainly senior center funding. We do provide a lot of services for seniors that are outside of the city. We did talk about solid waste and the sites located at Swift Street and at the Public Works Building, the County Public Works Building, which is located just off Sunrise. We talked about some data collection related to well and wellhead protection area that they had some questions on. We talked about water drainage in the 6,000 acres or so west of the community that impact us. We asked about library funding for additional library funding, talked about Township 361, and then also discussed some of the training and some potential future activities related to, I guess what I'd term today as diversity/equity training. And so those are potential areas where we may cooperate and where we have worked diligently to cooperate in the past. So that's kind of the list, I think, Mr. Mayor, besides those mentioned by Councilmember Johnson and Councilmember Grahams.
Okay,
Mayor and members, that's all I have for you for tonight.
all right. Does anyone have anything else they wanted to share with the council? I don't see anybody light up or hands go up, so if there's nothing else to add, I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
Ed will make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
This is Steve Graham. I'll second Ed's,
All right. Ed 1, Steve 2, all in favor of adjournment, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? We are adjourned.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.